The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. As Jesus passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither he nor his parents sinned. It is so that the works of God might be made visible through him. We have to do the works of the one who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva and smeared the clay on his eyes and said to him, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. So he went and washed and came back able to see. His neighbors and those who had seen him earlier as a beggar said, "Isn't this the one who used to sit and beg?" Someone said, "It is," but others said, "No, he just looks like him." He said, "I am." So they said to him, "How were your eyes opened?" He replied, "The man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and told me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' So I went there and washed and was able to see." And they said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I don't know." They brought the one who was once blind to the Pharisees. Now Jesus had made clay and opened his eyes on a Sabbath. So then the Pharisees also asked him how he was able to see. He said to them, "He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and now I can see." So some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath." But others said, "How can a sinful man do such signs?" And there was a division among them. So they said to the blind man again, "What do you have to say about him, since he opened your eyes?" He said, "He is a prophet." Now the Jews did not believe that he had been blind and gained his sight until they summoned the parents of the one who had gained his sight. They asked them, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How does he now see?" His parents answered and said, "We know that this is our son and that he was born blind. We do not know how he sees now, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him, he is of age. He can speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that if anyone acknowledged him as the Christ, he would be expelled from the synagogue. For this reason, his parents said, "He is of age, question him." So a second time they called the man who had been blind and said to him, "Give God the praise. We know that this man is a sinner." He replied, "If he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know is that I was blind and now I see." So they said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I told you already and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" They ridiculed him and said, "You are that man's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but we do not know where this one is from." The man answered and said to them, "This is what is so amazing, that you do not know where he is from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but if one is devout and does his will, he listens to him. It is unheard of that anyone ever opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he would not be able to do anything." They answered and said to him, "You were born totally in sin, and you are trying to teach us?" Then they threw him out. When Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, he found him and said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered and said, "Who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he." He said, "I do believe, Lord," and he worshiped him. Then Jesus said, I came into this world for judgment, that those who do not see might see, that those who do see might become blind. Some of the Pharisees who were with him heard this and said to him, surely we are not also blind, are we? Jesus said to them, if you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you are saying, we see, so your sin remains. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise you, Lord Jesus Christ. It's a great question that is asked in John 9, verse 17, of the man born blind. What do you have to say about Jesus since he opened your eyes? It's a great question for all of us. What do you have to say about Jesus since he opened your eyes? I can remember, I'm very grateful to God that for most of my life I've had excellent health, but I never had good eyes. And even when I was a little boy, I needed glasses to see the board, but I didn't want glasses because I didn't want my classmates to tease me about being four eyes or whatever. So I didn't get them, and I couldn't see the board, and I had to not do well in school because of that. Finally, I got glasses, and I can remember the experience of walking out of the ophthalmologist's office and just looking up, and I have never seen the leaves of trees, like every single one of them. And I was just astounded at the difference it made to actually be able to see. Jesus is constantly juxtapositioning physical blindness with spiritual blindness, isn't he? That sometimes God uses a physical imperfection in us in order to bring us to faith, to open the eyes of our hearts so that we can see God. I always say, you've heard me say, suffering, you never stay the same when you suffer. Either you're going to be farther from God or closer to God, and you'll decide which one it's going to be. And our sufferings take many different forms. 3 days comes up again and again, and during the Sundays of Lent. We know that last week the Samaritan woman in Jacob's well, right? And of course, she believes in him, and he stays in Samaria 3 days, significantly, right? Next week we'll have the raising of Lazarus, John chapter 11, and of course, John, he was in the tomb for 3 days. He'd been dead for 4 days. All of this pointing toward the upcoming resurrection of Christ. We sing that song, don't we? Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. The fact that you're here, unless your parents just made you come and you're not here because you have faith, right? We're here because we believe. Someone has opened the eyes of our hearts. God has given us grace, the grace of faith. And that doesn't mean that everybody's eyes are open the same, does it? Some people have much more faith than others. But faith is a gift. And our eyes can be opened more and more. You see this man born blind, what he said, who was Jesus? The first time he said he was a man. And then later when they questioned him again, what did he say? He was a prophet. He's a prophet. And then the last time, what did he say? You are the Lord. And he worshiped him. So do you see how God can, throughout our lifetime, open our eyes more and more, can he? Our faith we're able to see greater and greater as we go through. Spiritual blindness is definitely worse than physical blindness, because physical blindness is not going to keep you out of heaven, is it? But spiritual blindness means we can't see who God is. We can't understand. We always use that expression, we walk by faith, not by sight. And that means you can't tell me what's going to happen to you tomorrow or the next day or next year. God sees it, but no one else can, including angels or demons. Only God knows the future. And so we walk by faith, not by sight. Some interesting facts about this story. First of all, is the ancient use of spittle to heal. This seems very strange and unhygienic to us, but in the ancient world it was very common, and people believed that spittle, especially the spittle of some distinguished person, had powerful curative qualities. Pliny, the famous Roman collector of what was then called scientific information, had a whole chapter in his book on the use of spittle to heal. He recommends it as a remedy for snake bite, epilepsy, leprosy, eye disease, and cancer. Especially what he called fasting spittle. So some distinguished person who had fasted a couple of days, his spittle or her spittle was especially powerful. Now, we all know that when we burn our finger, what's the first thing we do with it? Put it in our mouth, don't we? It's kind of instinctive that it would help us. Jewish thought in the time of Christ, the second interesting thing about this story, was that a man born blind or a person otherwise born handicapped was considered a sinner. People said to him, "You're a sinner. That's why you were born blind, or you were born with one leg shorter than the other," or whatever it might be. And that's why the apostles asked him, Jesus today, when they saw the man born blind, who, by the way, had not asked for anything. He didn't ask to be healed, did he? And he looked at him, and they said, was it his sin or his parents' sin that caused him to be born blind? And what did Jesus say? Neither he nor his parents sinned, but it is so that the works of God might be made visible through him. Now, the other thing was that people could be very cruel to people who were handicapped or had something. And they literally, because of that Jewish theology that said the reason they were born with this whatever handicap or whatever was because they were a sinner. How can they be a sinner when they weren't born yet, right? And people would literally spit on them. Someone who was a beggar on the side of the road, people would literally spit on them, basically declaring that they were a sinner. And did you notice today that Jesus spat, not on him, but on the ground? Probably all the Pharisees were going, yeah, see, he's going to spit on him just like we do, right? But Jesus didn't spit on him. He used that spittle to make some mud, put it on his eyes, and then sent him to wash in that very famous pool called the Pool of Siloam. And the word means sent. Why was it? Because that was an engineering marvel of that time. And that was the walls of Jerusalem at that time had no water source inside, fresh water. And the way war was fought is that if they were put under siege, they would all die very quickly because there was no water source inside the walls. Now, they later built the walls outside, the famous Gihon Spring. And when Hezekiah, the king, realized that Sennacherib was about to invade Palestine, you can read this in 2 Chronicles 32, he decided to have a conduit dug through solid rock from the pool all the way 583 yards. It came up right into the middle of the city of Jerusalem. And it was an engineering marvel. If you go to Jerusalem today, you can actually walk through that tunnel and see. It's about this wide, so you don't want to do it if you're claustrophobic. And the water's about knee deep. And you can walk through that tunnel where it comes out inside the city gates and what they call the Pool of Siloam. That's why it means sent. They sent the water through the rock, and it was enabled them to survive during war. And that was the pool that Jesus commanded the man born blind to go and wash the mud from his eyes. So, opening our eyes, we're asking the Lord, you're here because you have faith. Your eyes have been opened, right? At least somewhat. But God can open them more, can't he? It's kind of spiritual glasses where you can see the leaves of the trees. To have real spiritual vision. To see everything and everyone through the eyes of Jesus. Everything happens to me to make, everything that happens can make you better or bitter, and you choose. In Acts chapter 9, Jesus did the same thing. Do you remember that? St. Paul, right? Knocked down, and what happened to him? Blinded. How long? There it is again. 3 days. 3 days he was blind. And at the end of those 3 days, Ananias the priest came and laid his hands on his head. Something like scales fall from his eyes. And St. Paul is the apostle to the Gentiles. traveled all over the world bringing the faith to people. He had been blind spiritually. Even though he was a very devout Jew, he didn't see the truth about Jesus until the Lord opened his eyes. So what is the question again? Since he opened your eyes, what do you have to say about Jesus? It's a great question, because the Lord has come to open our eyes and our hearts, the eyes of our hearts, so that we believe in him and live the life of Christianity, and that we will one day live with him forever in heaven. Amen.